What's up, dreamers? It's your host, Santi Trix, and welcome to episode number 3 of the Hollywood Dreams podcast. Tonight, we'll be talking with Mio Alvarado, who you might remember from being the amazing guitarist for the LA band ORPHAN. Mio's a great musician and an amazing guy with lots of interesting stories, so buckle up because this is a good one. So, as always, fasten your seatbelts, apply your makeup, spray your hair, and let's rock! Hey Mio, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Good to talk to you.
Great having you here. Thanks. Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to do this. It sounds great.
Awesome, man. So this is the Hollywood Dreams podcast, right? So tell me,
Hmm.
do you consider yourself a dreamer?
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, I think if you stop dreaming, you die. So it's always good to visualize, keep dreaming, keep moving forward. Don't just dream. You dream, but then you got to chase after it, right? Yeah. So you visualize what you want in life, and then you pursue it. But you gotta put the action in. So yeah, I'm totally a dreamer.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that sentiment. That's great.
Mhm.
All
Thank you.
right. So I obviously invited you to talk about Orphan, your band, on your musical background, and all that stuff. But first, before we dive into that, let's go way back to where you were young and an aspiring rock star, I would say. So I wanted to know what got you into music. What made you love rock and roll?
Yeah, but I grew up in El Paso, Texas, which is a border city in Texas, El Paso. It's all the way in the West Texas, and it's very growing up. It was a pretty it was influenced by everything. It had rock and roll. It had Tejano Mexican music. It had indigenous Indian music, Native American, excuse me.
Yeah,
We had everything. So, but I got into rock and roll originally because me and my friends liked it. We grew up with it. I had a friend down the street whose brother played in a rock band, and he had like a Stratocaster and a Marshall amp. And I remember the first time I saw one, I was like, "Oh my god, that's the most amazing looking thing I've ever seen!" And just the
yeah.
word Stratocaster to me was magical. Just the word, just Stratocaster. I was like, "What is that?" But my
Sounds
my family was very musical. It was my brother played guitar. He played classical guitar, and my sister played guitar too. And
cool.
very musical family. And I just at first I played a little bit of guitar, a little bit of classical, a little bit of acoustic. But my oldest sister um, met a gentleman. His name was Nick Lopez, who became my brother-in-law. He still is, and he's the first rock and roll. He first turned me on to Hendrix,
Okay.
which is great. But when you're a little kid, you're just like, to me, listening to Hendrix was like way beyond my comprehension. I was like, what is this? I did not understand what he was doing. It's like, there's no way. And then, but the first album that really got me excited about hard rock was Deep Purple's Machine Head, which was just blew my mind. And then I
Wow.
saw Richie Blackmore, and I thought he was cool and he looked pretty neat. And I could see myself doing that because Hendrix was just on another planet, But but Richie Blackmore, I go, oh, he's white. I can do that. So I started chasing that.
More approachable, right?
It seemed more approachable. Yeah, he's I don't know. Hendrix was just incredible, just the way he walked and talked and moved, and it was just
Godlike. Yeah.
so fluid and liquid, right? And whereas Richie Blackmore, I could see he's a little more stiffer, a little more like me. you know, I could see myself doing that. So that was my first album that I got into, and then eventually that went into. Then I started working in a music store in El Paso called the
Mhm.
Melody Shop, and that turned and the kids that worked there, and punk rock was coming around, and that got me excited about that type of stuff. Listening to, I like the California punk rock, like the Germs,
Mhm.
X stuff like that, and
All
uh,
right.
and then that listening to them also, I realized that they were also influenced by bands that I like the visual aspect of, like the New York Dolls, um, you know, New York Dolls, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, MC5, all that, and that,
Uh-huh.
so that all that, I just kept mixing everything up. I still played classical guitar. I started learning to play jazz guitar, but then, I did everything. My sister turned me on to all the soul, the funk, the James Brown. I just like music, man. I just really liked everything about it. But I did like cool looking bands. Does that make sense? Like I love the New York Dolls, the way they looked. I love Iggy Pop. I like bands that had a visual thing to them that looked cool. And I like bands that ran around and moved around on stage. I never liked people that just stood and stared at their shoes. You know,
Yeah,
I wanted people to break stuff. You know, I wanted people to run around. I wanted to see the Who. You know, all that stuff. Yeah.
absolutely. You had like a theatrical leaning, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't want to just sit there and just, stand there and be bored. You know what I mean? Or people just, I mean, I get the musical thing about it, but I'm not a Grateful Dead kind of guy. Nothing wrong with them, but I wanted to see I remember seeing Alice Cooper early, he did the whole show and theatrics and I Kiss one time. And Kiss was great as always, but they had Wendy Williams and the Plasmatics open. Wendy O. Oh my God.
Yeah.
They just blew Kiss off the stage. I was like, look at that. That was amazing. I'd never seen anything like that. So yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, sounds risky for the Kiss to take the plasmatics on stage, being that they are even more theatrical than they were, right?
Exactly. And it was really weird because the Kiss audience back then was really mostly a bunch of little kids. Which is really people don't realize that they're like a really young audience. And when Wendy O came out with their tape over her nipples and stuff like that, I remember all these parents are covering their kids' eyes because they're like, "Oh my God, what is this?" Yeah, yeah. I was pretty funny. It was pretty funny how shocking she was to them. I always like the
Yeah, well, they called it shock rock, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was neat. It was fun, and she did the whole thing, cutting TVs in half with chainsaws and guitars, and the whole theatrics, and had an elevator going up and down and singing on it. It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great band. And you mentioned Deep Purple, so I mean that Machine Head, that album,
Mhm.
Highway Star is the first song, right? So that opening riff, I mean, man, that's if that doesn't get you air guitar in a, I mean, what could, right?
No, yeah, exactly. Just that whole album, just the way that comes out. My favorite song on that is actually "Lazy" because it was just so
Hmm.
cinematographic. Is that the correct word for it? You can almost visualize a movie. It was just very beautifully
Yeah.
shot the way it's done. I like to listen to music sometimes where you listen to it architecturally. What I mean by architecturally is like it's like you're visiting a house and you're going from room to room. And that album has felt like I was going to different rooms. Every time you hear a new cut, you enter another room, and it was really nice. And I love that. And I got to know all those rooms very well when I was a kid. You know, I still do. I still think I still try to listen when I listen to music now. I still try to remember what it was like when I was a kid. How I would just really be actively listening to it. And for a
Yeah,
while, you forget that sometimes when you get a little older to do that.
you get more jaded.
Yeah, and just start drinking and drugging and not paying attention enough. So
Hmm.
it's sometimes you forget about these things is all. Or life gets in the way. Yeah, it's different for everybody. But
Yeah, that childlike amazement from
mm,
that
y-
you have very young. Yeah, I get that.
exactly. Yeah, when you're a kid, you get these happy chemicals, the happy chemicals
Hmm.
that your brain produces already, like dopamine, oxytocin. You get them just naturally from music and things that you love, that you're passionate about. And then when you get older, you get a little jaded, and you start drinking, you start doing drugs, and that goes away because you replaced it. You're getting it from another source. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm I'm
absolutely.
I'm working, and I've been, that's what I'm doing now. You know, enjoying it the way I used to, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So when did you start your first band? Was that in
Um,
the past as well?
in El Paso, I started playing in bands, but in El Paso, it was pretty much all the other bands that were big bands. You go to a club or a bar. I'm talking about, not that had live music. They would just be playing covers most of the time, unless it was a touring act. It was all cover bands, And I was like, well,
Mm.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah,
Music school for a little bit in El Paso, went to UTEP, University of Texas El Paso, and I studied classical guitar because that's what my brother did, but I didn't want to do that really. It wasn't for me. Well, my
hmm,
heart wasn't into that music. I wanted to play rock and roll. I'd already gotten
yeah,
an electric guitar from my brother-in-law, the one I was telling you about with the Deep Purple. He got me my first electric guitar. My dad bought me an amp, and I just practiced all the time. And people don't realize, kids nowadays, it's like if you want to learn a song, man, you had to just like listen to it off vinyl, you know. So I ruined a million records just putting down that needle on records over and over, trying to learn riffs. And I went from
Yeah.
Michael Schenker, also from Richie Blackmore to Michael Schenker was another huge influence of mine when I was a kid. And I listened to all the blues guys. For being my favorite Texas blues guitar player is Albert Collins, and but I love all the Kings, of course. And I mean, there's a
Yeah.
million guitar players. I love them all, but yeah. But I had to learn off of put my needle down on a record. And it's like, oh, got to do it again. So I just destroyed a million records, just because there was no YouTube, So,
All right.
yeah, and then I remember even listening to Eddie Van Halen the first time. We had no clue how he was doing it. We're trying to imagine. I mean, in our heads, we're like, going, "Are his fingers super extra long? What is the deal? How does he do that hammer on stuff?" We had because we visually had no idea until he showed up, until he came into concert and played. Then we went, "Oh, that's how he does it." Now I get it. But without the only way you could have any clue of how someone did it live was by obviously by getting it was by going to a live show, and that's how I learned how to see how Eddie Van Halen did it and how Randy Rhoads, who I got to see before he passed away, and all these greats. So it was wonderful. Yeah,
Was that the Aussie tour?
yeah, the Aussie too. The second time he went around, it's when they had the big castle stuff, the big
Yeah.
castle background and everything. And Rudy Stars was playing bass at the time. Yeah, that was really great. But yeah,
It's
I had
amazing.
bands. I had a band called Aftermath and a couple little cover bands. But then, like I said, I wanted to go to move to Los Angeles, so I applied to go to GIT, which is Guitar Institute of Technology Musicians Institute, which is
Mhm.
based in Hollywood. And one of my best friends had already moved there from El Paso. He was in a punk band called the Upsets, and he moved already, so I was just kind of following him. He was telling me, he goes, "Dude, come out here," and he would send me LA weeklies and magazines, show me all the rock ads for all the bands. So I'm like going, I gotta go. Look at all these guys, look at all these crazy guys, and they're playing original music, and that was exciting. I knew my parents weren't going to let me just move there by myself, so a black with no, you know, with no plan. So I told him I'd go to music school and all that, and showed them the stuff, and then I applied, and I got in, and so they agreed with that. So I moved there in a little bit, I think in '84. Drove me and my buddy, this guy named Mark Morrow, who was in a band called Dirty Blonde back then, like, among other bands, but
All right. Okay.
his
Yeah.
band was called Dirty Blonde. And yeah, me and him, we just packed up our cars and we moved to LA. Fucking just kids, I don't think neither one of us were 21 years old yet. We're 20, 19 and 20, I think. And moved there and just lived in Hollywood all crazy. We went to JIT, which is located on Hollywood Boulevard, and we'd walk up and down Hollywood Boulevard with my guitar case and him with his drum stuff. And it was dangerous back then. And looking back at it, because I was just in Hollywood a little while ago, and people go, "Be careful, Hollywood's dangerous." I go, "You have no idea what dangerous is." In the '80s, it was scary. There was crack cocaine. It was rampant everywhere. The streets were dirty and filthy. There was a Pussycat Theater, and just it was pretty hairy back then. Now it's a walk in the park. I'm like, going, no, this is nothing. But yeah. So then I moved to LA, and then I went to school, went to GIT, and that was a really great school. I don't know if you're probably familiar with it, right? With the school GIT. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah. Only in passing, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you go there, you don't even realize that these people you're going to school with are amazing. I mean, I knew they were great players, but I didn't know what was going to happen to them. I went to school with my classmates were Jeff Buckley, Paul Gilbert,
Oh wow.
Tommy T-Bone Caradonna, who he was a bass player. He played with Alice Cooper and Lita Ford, one of my best friends. Jimmy DeGrasso, he also played with Alice Cooper and Megadeth and Y&T and all these bands, and Jimmy Herring, who's a funk guy guitar, not a funk, I'm sorry, a bluesy kind of guy, just a great guitar player. But all these guys were there, and back then, you'd have Al Di Meola giving you a guitar class or a master class, or Steve Vai, would walk in and do that, or Eric Johnson. It's just crazy how when you're living it, you don't realize how amazing it is until you have put some space
Yeah.
between it. Now I look back, I go, "Fuck, that's crazy." All these amazing
I,
players under one, and that was my year. We were on the same class in the year that we were all going. So these are like my friends.
it's crazy to think that they were all in the same space, right? The
Same here.
same,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. We were hanging out, having lunch, talking shit. Excuse my language. And people always crack me up when people ask me about, like, they all ask about Jeff Buckley, right? And because
yeah.
Jeff Buckley's on Tommy Death, but I love it when female friends of mine, they go, "Oh, can you tell me about him? Because he's so dreamy and sweet. I bet he was the kindest man." I go, "Oh, he was such a smart ass. He was really sarcastic and a smart ass, and he was cocky, but he could back it up. But I love the guy. He just was, but it wasn't what people envision his personality to be. Is not at all what it was really like. He was kind of a smart aleck and funny and quick witted and sarcastic. He was pretty entertaining. But yeah, so I did that for the first year, and I went to school, and that's all I did the first year, learning where I was in LA, and then did that, and eventually I ended up joining I got a call out to put this guy named Vicky James Wright, who before he moved to LA was in a band called Tokyo Blade.
Yeah, yeah. So Johnny Crash, right?
Yeah,
His band.
yeah. So he was the first guy that I played with. That was my first big band in Los Angeles, and it was under his name. He was just a solo act at first when he moved there, and we
Okay.
had really good management. Sorry, I'm sorry I didn't get her name down, but she's related to ACDC's management. She was the daughter of the manager of ACDC, and
Hmm.
she moved to LA, and she was our manager, and she was doing really great for us. We're doing really well. We're
And
pretty.
that makes sense, right? Because
Mhm.
Vicky's music is always so ACDC esque, I would
Yeah,
say.
he
Yeah.
always had a band, but back then he was really into actually David Lee Roth. He was actually,
All right.
yeah. Before that, he was all doing a that kind of deal. And doing choreographed dancing, and he would jump off. If you look at the Tokyo Blade albums, they actually show him doing one of those David Lee Roth jumps where he does the splits and shit. So David Lee
Hmm.
Roth was actually a huge influence on. Actually, David Lee Roth was a huge influence on a lot of guys. Like the singer of Poison as well, Brett
Yeah,
Michaels.
no shit, right?
Yeah, a couple of people. Yeah. So that was his deal too back then, and then later on he started. I mean, he always liked ACDC too. He just kind of morphed into that a little bit more. But yeah, that
Yeah.
was the first big band, and we were doing really well. But then me and him got in an argument, which is probably my fault looking back. I was, I was a guitar player. He's a lead singer. I talked a lot of shit. So did he, but I talked more probably. I don't know. I messed up. I think that was my fault. Looking
Uh,
back, that I said something wrong, and he ended up leaving and eventually making Johnny Crashers a great album and a great band. And I love that band a lot. And we were without a singer, so we tried a couple of singers for a while that didn't work out, and we eventually got Sean Crosby, who became
mhm.
the lead singer of that band. We didn't know what to call it. We called it Death Row at first. First, we were called Skid Row. Excuse me. We were called Skid Row, and we did
And
that for a
that's
long
great.
time. Yeah, and then we had the rights in California, but then all of a sudden the other Skid Row, Bon Jovi's, got them signed, and they had their same management as them. I forgot the name of the management guys right now. Doc something. But he also managed Motley Crue
Doug
and
McGee.
Doc McGee. Thank you. So I'm glad you have it together. And I don't. Because my brain is gone now. But yeah, so Doc McGee got them.
I can now. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, so good. I was getting scared for a second. So Doc McGee sent out a letter to us saying we had to cease and desist, and so we had to stop using that name. I think they paid us a little bit of money because I remember we got some equipment. I can't really recall.
Well, that's crazy you say that because I was gonna say your orphan music sounds a lot like Skid Row to me.
I've heard that a lot, and there was a lot of talk about because we had the whole package. We already been out in LA, and we were doing it with Sean, and the way the band looked and everything, and the whole vibe, was toast. I think, that was
Yeah.
our whole deal. And all of a sudden, here comes this other band that wants our name and everything. And I look at him, I go, look at those guys. They kind of look like they're dressing like us, to be honest with us. I mean, to be honest with me, and we were all seeing that too. That guy looks like he's trying to be you, and that guy definitely wants to be Sean, and this guy wants to be, right, So, but You know,
Yeah, and they
who
didn't
knows?
have Sebastian Bach yet. I don't think, right?
No, not yet. They're still looking for someone. They're trying to model someone like that to get someone. I don't know. So who knows? I mean, it's like, but whoever wins the wars, it gets to write history, right? So that's you know, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Whoever wins the war gets to say how it was. So I'm not going to trip on it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
There's like that story about the two Pretty Boy Floyds, like one from Canada and one from the U.S.
right, yeah. Little things
Very
like
strange.
that. There's really strange little things that you'd see that would go around in town that I remember. Like, I mean, I'm getting off the subject a little bit, but let's take for instance like Motley Crue. Motley Crue when they first came out were trend setting. They were cool looking. They had it all going on. But after a while, they're running out of things to do. So whenever something would interesting or new would be happening around the town, they'd kind of like come around. You'd see him, and
Mhm.
everybody, we used to sit there and hide. He goes, "Oh, Motley Crue's coming around. Hide your shit, or hide your stuff, or don't play your best song." Because all of a sudden, yeah, that would happen. And then you look at the album, and I go, "Fuck, they did that, or they did this, or yeah,
Yeah, I mean everyone was hungry for a hit, and so I,
sure thing.
I can yeah.
It
So
happens."
so how did the band start? Well, you touched on it a little bit, but when did you guys first start to get like packed clubs and stuff like that?
Well, we always had to. We were luckily we'd build things up eventually. I mean, first we started with Vicky James Wright, so we built up a little bit of an audience already, and we played some pretty good shows. And then when Vic left, that was okay. We got a singer for a while. And then we got Sean, and people liked Sean, and he was a different. He could sing and scream higher. I don't think he was as good of a live performer as Vicky, but he was good. Um, and we were building the audience up. We were playing some good shows. We opened up for Warren at the Country Club. We opened up for I just saw him recently again. Kicks. We opened up for Kicks. We opened up for a bunch of really big acts like that, which just helps more people see you. And of course, back then it was pay to play. So of course you'd first pay to play the first shows, and then once you start to prove yourself, once you could draw, because I mean, if you have a pay to play show, I always tell people, I go, look, if people go there and you're so good that they like you, the next they just keep paying, right? So, and if they come see you and then they don't come back, well, then you know how to fix that. You got to work on
Yeah,
that. So, yeah, eventually we started drawing pretty well on our own, and then we started headlining at the Whiskey and the Roxy and the Troubadour and Gazzari's on our own as Orphan, which was doing pretty good. Things were going great. We started doing some demos with Mikey Davis, who was an engineer producer for Kiss,
oh,
actually
cool.
for Gene Simmons, actually, and he helped do our demos, and he helped put out that record that we have right now on F&A Records. Those were all the demos for that, for either Simmons Records or something like that. We're going to sign to, and things are
Yeah, so
going, yeah, things are
cool.
going good.
So
But we had a bunch of people telling us what to do back then. Though everybody was already on rock music.
hmm
And I'm be honest with you, I didn't know what was I remember when we were playing with Vicky James, our manager used to tell us, don't do the big hair or don't do that. Just let it just play, be more natural, be more dirty. And I was like, oh no, I think I want to be more like Hanoi Rocks. That's what I wanted. And plus, I like that. I mean, I like that the aesthetic, the look of it, but I wanted to be more raw like them because I still had that punk vibe in me. I love punk rock, and the other guys were in agreeing when we said, you get in a band, it's like having four different wives, and it's hard to please them all. So yeah, it
yeah,
got rough.
so there was like two scenes, right? One more glammy, like the Warrants and those kind of bands, and then the like the sleazier side, like Faster Pizzica, those kind of bands, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was first the warranty stuff was kind of right. Would be more on the Sunset Strip, Gazzari's, and we would play there too. And then the other
hmm
guys were playing the underground clubs, or sometimes even downtown. The sleazier stuff, which was fun. And I mean, I preferred the sleazy stuff for me, because it was a little more, more raw, rough around the edges.
Did you
Um,
play the Cat House?
yeah, yeah. I never played the Cat House. I used to go there all the time. I lived there, but I never personally got to play the Cat House, unfortunately. No, but I did play Club Lingerie, and we played a couple places downtown, and that was always great. I preferred
Did
it.
you have Did you had a favorite club to play?
A favorite club to play? I was always the whiskey for me. Yeah, the
Mm.
whiskey at Go Go was always my favorite place to play, just because of the history. And back then, which was you'd go up in the upstairs in the backstage areas on the walls. It used to have people, all the famous people, like would write on the walls or carve their names on the walls, and it had like the Doors writing on the walls and Hendrix, all these famous, amazing people. It was written on the walls, and then some other new owners came and they painted over it. And I was like, "Are you insane? Are you kidding me?" I couldn't believe they fucking did that. I was so mad. Yeah, the whiskey, just because of the history. I mean, I was just at the whiskey not even a month ago, and it's interesting that it's still there. The vibe is different. The people are different, but it was still there though. It's funny how we get older and the buildings stay there, which is I like that.
Yeah, it's a history. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it was nice. It's nice that Hollywood still is still. Yeah,
Well, most of some parts of it at least.
yeah. Gazari's isn't there anymore. That got something else is there now, and a couple places come and go. But overall, you can still go to places. Some places, the Roxy's still there. The Sunset Strip, when people have no idea what it was like. It was just incredible back then. Just you'd go there and just the sheer amount of people walking up and down the streets, hanging out flyers and pushing their band. There was so much competition, and
Yeah.
it was just insane. And just the life, it was just crazy. I was driving around on a Saturday night. There was none of that's there anymore. There's
Yeah.
people out there walking around, but not like people don't realize what it was like. There was like millions of people, all these long haired guys, rockers and guys. It was just crazy. It was just crazy. But I was glad to.
A moment in time that probably will never come back.
No, I don't think so. Now because there's not really any scenes anymore musically like that. I mean, yeah, I was really proud to have lived and been around there.
So so you were recording those demos. But was there any talk of a major deal, like
There,
coming
there,
closer or stuff like that?
yeah, there was always talk like that, and we had our management was coming close to that. We had a really good. We had this girl that was just doing wonderful for us. And
Hmm.
hold on a sec. I'm afraid to move off this because I'll throw it off there. Her name was Clarissa Garcia, and she was helping us. And she'd worked with a bunch of other bands, and she wrote major magazines. And then eventually, she started working for Deaf America Records, which is Rick Rubin's record label. It's just called American Records afterwards. But she worked with them and getting us really close to deals, and everything was going fine. But like I said, you get people listening to some people, and other people listen to others, and and just too many people that have no knowledge about music telling you what to do is very frustrating, and it can be heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
again, so Sean got the offer to join this other band because he thought they were luring him with like, oh, we got this better deal happening, we'll get signed for sure and all that. But so he left and joined this other band, and I think they're called Jones Street. And the other guys in the band, actually, they were nice guys to me, but those guys were going more for the Warrant kind of music. They acted like they were sleazy, but they were really more Warranty. And I wanted to go the other direction. I wanted to be more, you know,
Maria.
more Hannah or Roxy. I didn't want to play guitars with whammy bars anymore and Floyd Roses. I wanted to play a real guitar, and about a real guitar, I shouldn't insult it. I'm just saying I just wanted to play more like I played like everyone was playing Les Pauls back then, so I just played a straight Stratocaster back then, just
Mhm.
to be different. But yeah, I couldn't, you know, I was just worried about that, and so he left and joined Jones Street, and then we tried to find other singers for a while, and then finally we just couldn't do it anymore. And then I could feel the things kind of changing there. I've always had a good thing about spider sense. Does that make sense? I was starting to feel things like things were changing. I could tell. And a lot of these bands that were going to the valley to play, and all of a sudden this new music was coming around. It was a little more the Seattle scene was starting to come in, and I could tell. And I started playing with Tyler, the singer from Dogs D'Amour, and we were
Oh
working.
wow.
yeah, we started working together for a little bit, and I would write songs. And we met at a bar called uh, um, Borders in Hollywood, and we just became buds because we were both like Bukowski fans, and because I read everything by Charles Bukowski, and so did he. So we'd sit there and tell stories, and we connected on that vibe. So we were working a little bit on stuff together, writing on acoustic guitars and stuff. It was pretty fun, but nothing ever came of fruition of that, unfortunately. It was like we were doing really well, and then he was having issues with a personal relationship, and it didn't come. Nothing came out of it. And then I started
Hmm.
playing with this other girl named Deborah, the Ministers of Culture. And I had a girlfriend that sang backgrounds for her, and she was doing really well. She had like a development deal out of Geffen Records, and that
Yeah.
was really nice. And actually, Vicky Hamilton got her that deal. Vicky Hamilton, who's instrumental for getting Guns N' Roses signed, Motley Crue, Poison.
Yeah.
So, and actually, there's a picture of Deborah Hannon and Vicky Hamilton's book. If you've ever read it, that what's it called? Appetite for Dysfunction is what the book is called. So,
Okay.
so I played with Deborah Hannon for a while, and that was really cool. And we actually got signed to a major label. So it was really funny that I never got signed to a major label. Got close, really close, several times. You know, put the demos out, got everything together, get so close, and never got it. Then I got signed with Deborah Hannon, who was more of a concrete blonde Pretenders kind of vibe. But but again, we got signed. We had this big celebration. We did all this great stuff, and then that didn't come to fruition either because we it was supposed to happen. We're gonna have one of the guitar players, I think is, or someone from, I want to say Ament, I think is his name, from Pearl Jam, was supposed to produce the album, and never
Hmm.
happened. And that didn't happen either. So I got frustrated and got mad, and things weren't going really well for me. I was starting to drink and do too many drugs and partying. And of course, that wasn't the reason things were going bad. That's what I told myself, right? Because us people that had drinking and drug problems, it's never that. It's always something else. Just it's bad luck or fuck LA or it's everyone else's fault but mine.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I ended up getting mad and pissed off, and moving to Austin, Texas. First, I stopped in El Paso. I hated it, where I grew up in, and I couldn't stand it. I stayed there for maybe like 3 weeks. I couldn't take it, so I moved to Austin, Texas, because I knew it was a musical town, and I had friends that lived there that would help me out. So that's where I moved to in '95. So
Okay.
yeah, and so I was in LA for about 11 years, and then I moved to Austin, Texas. Yeah, a little bit sad, but then and then the '90s happened in Austin. I didn't really do shit. I was just looking for. Nobody knew what I was playing, or nobody really knew who I was back there in Austin when I first moved here. I mean, a couple people did, but not for most of it. I didn't. There was no internet yet. There's no
Yeah.
Facebook or social media. So I just kind of just worked, did whatever I did could do, and in the '90s there was no lead guitar playing going on. There's a lot of guys playing 7-string guitars like Korn, and no lead guitars, no load solos. I was like, oh, well, I'm not really into that
No.
thing, and yeah. So I didn't do anything until a little later. I started playing with. I met this guy from LA actually, and we started a band called Los Hispanos UK, and that was really cool. And it was like we call it Los Hispanos UK. We're like a Latin punk. We're more of a psychobilly rockabilly band, and
That's
it
cool.
got me excited about playing music again. His name was Orestes Perez. Orestes Perez, and he was a great singer and songwriter, and we had the LA thing. We both loved Hanoi Rocks, and we loved stuff like that, and we like music that made you move. That's still the same thing for me. I like music that makes you fucking move. It got whatever it is, just it's got to groove. It's
Yeah.
got to do something. Make me fucking tap my shoe, tap my foot, dance, run around. And
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah,
You guys recorded a record too, as well.
yeah, we did. Yeah, yeah. So we recorded an album and put it out, and very rough, very independent, very, very. It was a fun record. I still like some of the songs on that.
Hmm.
And we played around Austin. We went to Los Angeles and toured out there a little bit, and started playing pretty well. But then things just we started going a little bit off, and then the singer Orestes unfortunately got cancer and passed away. So
Oh.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking. He was one of my best buddies. And then I just started doing the hired gun work, for a little while. I did another album with another band called Southbound Saints. I was called by them to see if I wanted to play lead guitar for them. They were like a throwback. I was like, oh, I haven't done hard rock in a long time, So I thought I'd check it out. And these guys were like very influenced by what I did. I go, did you play in Orphan and all that? Yeah, yeah, I did. Or didn't you play with these guys? Yeah, they knew all my history before I even did it. I thought that was kind of interesting. It's like,
Wow.
where'd you get this stuff from? The internet? I go, what's the internet? I'm like, I had no idea. And they found me, and I did one album with them, which was pretty neat. Um, it was produced by the second guitar player, the guy that replaced Steve Stevens with Billy Idol. His name was
Oh,
Mark Younger-Smith. Yeah,
yeah.
so he produced an EP. Yeah, he produced the EP for us, and that one you can find on Spotify and all that. Same thing with Los Hispanos UK. You can find that still on all different formats.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those albums are cool.
yeah.
I out. Um, so nowadays, you told me you were working on a book.
Well, yeah, I was hoping we could maybe not. I still don't want to talk about that one quite yet. It's a work
Okay.
in progress, if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. I'm working on it, but it's a. How about we say this? I'm thinking about working on it. I'm working. I'm putting the ideas down for a book. How's that? I am
All
doing
right.
it. I am doing it. Yeah, but I have a friend of mine helping me write it. It's actually the same girl that used to be my manager in Orphan. She's the one that came up
Mhm.
with the idea. She just kind of goes, "Hey, you've done all this stuff and you've been through all these crazy things. Why don't we write a book about it?" And having to deal with my career in music and my recovery, getting yeah, because I've been clean and sober for over 12 years now. So, and once I did that, things started getting really good for me. Once I started realizing, wait a second, who's the bad guy? I'm the bad guy. You know, I need to fix myself, and coming to that realization. I remember when I first got sober, and then I got sober, and I was still the Los Hispanos UK was kind of finishing up, and immediately I started playing with some really good people. And I was like, wait a second, how's this happening? Started playing with Eric McFadden, who played with Parliament Funkadelic, and playing shows with
Wait.
him. Eric
Mhm.
McFadden, have you heard of him? He played with
Yeah.
P Funk for a while. He played with a bunch of people. Great guy, and through him, he introduced me to Corey Glover from Living Color, and I played a couple of shows with him. And then eventually, turned me on to Angela Moore, from the singer from Fishbone, who I love. Fishbone, that's one of my favorite bands. Who people don't
Yeah.
realize, the Red
World
Hot
War.
Chili Peppers got their whole vibe, and they just saw that they took everything from Fishbone, and just took it, And I was I'm sitting there, God, these great things are to me, and I'm clean and sober. I feel good. I'm turning 50, and I'm still playing shows, and I'm still doing it. I can't. A lot of people from my era don't do it anymore. Don't play, which I look at it now as most of these guys I knew that from the '80s that were in bands that had some pretty decent success. With it,
Yeah.
maybe got gold, whatever records. Like I'm good friends with the singer from um, oh God, I can't think of their name out. They're an Austin band. My brain is dying. But oh my God, how could I forget his name? Anyhow, it's an Austin based band. Um,
Yeah.
and
Well, maybe it will come up eventually.
Yeah,
But so is
but
Austin nowadays a musical town? Do you play regularly there?
yeah, I play constantly there. I mean, I'm constantly here. I've been busy for a while. With either touring acts. I still play every now with Angela Moore, and then I have there's a I play jazz with this girl named Datura, she's based out of Philadelphia, but we should come out here. We'll play.
Mm-hmm. Yep, yep, I can.
My phone stops off and it does that. Forgive me.
That's
But
okay. Don't worry.
you're asking me about the last thing I heard was the Austin thing, or I play a lot here, and I was just
Yeah.
listing off people. Yeah, so I play with I play jazz with this girl named Datura, She's out of Philadelphia, and that's really fun. She's kind of a throwback of like Amy Winehouse is kind of a deal. I hate to compare it to that, but that kind of deal. Nina Simone vibe. Then I play with punk rock. I've been playing with Josh Langford music, which he's from a band called Starving Wolves, which
Mhm.
also Crumb Bums, and those guys tour all the time. And we're playing with Josh Langford locally. We do acoustic shows and electric. It's great. And then I have a new band called the Mean Hearts, which is made up
Okay.
from different members from the Applicators and the Crumb Bums, and then me, and uh, and that's doing real well. We just put out a new album right now. It just came out just this year
Oh, cool.
under the Mean Hearts, and you can get that through Bandcamp or through Spotify. And we're touring right now and playing shows. We're playing in 2 weeks now, so
Oh,
pretty
cool.
pretty excited that that's going on for me, and a couple other things are coming up. I'm supposed to be collaborating with Jimmy Thrill. Jimmy Quill is his name, but used to go by Jimmy Thrill. He was in a band called Rattlesnake Shake in L.A.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he's in contact with me about doing some touring and some play shows together. I did a movie with him that was really great. It's called Off the Record, and it's available through Prime Video. Anyway,
Okay.
you can catch me in that movie took place right when I got ran after I got ran over, which is, I don't know if people your audience will know, but I was ran over by a driver 6 years ago, and
Oh my God.
yeah, and it shattered my legs and broke my back and shattered my shoulder, and my face went to the windshield, and so I was out of it for a long time. And I was luckily I was still sober. I was sober when that happened, and I was pretty strong and healthy, and I didn't lose any parts. I have metal in my I have titanium rods in both legs and my shoulder, and I don't move as well as I used to, but that doesn't stop me. You know, I'm I'm
You're
I'm.
full on metalhead now.
Say it again.
You're full on metalhead
I
now.
am. I am right. I know. I know. I'm so metal.
It's
I can't even go through an airport now because I'm so metal. Yeah. Yeah.
well, it's great to hear that you're fully recovered though.
I am for most part. You know, it makes it a little harder to move, but you just make up for it. And I'm just thankful that I can still play music and that I'm sober and that my family's doing well, and I'm just gonna keep doing. I'm gonna keep doing until I can't. So
Yeah,
if there's
that's
this, but there's a Charles Bukowski quote that says, "Find what you love to do, that kill you." So that's what I'm doing. you know, I
yeah,
love to play music. I love where I'm from. I love all that, and I love talking to you about some of the old days. That's great. Yeah, I mean, you're right.
it's
People
great
don't
talking
realize.
with you.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it was an
thanks, man. It's
amazing
great
thing.
talking with you as well.
Yeah.
And so before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you. I don't know if I told you this ahead of time, but I usually list a top three albums. I don't know if you, off the top of your head, what would you say are your all-time favorite three albums?
Oh, um, I would say as a band, like my favorite guitar player actually in the world is a guy named Paul Kossoff from Free. I
Okay.
just love him, and I love the way Paul Rogers sang before he joined Bad Company. When he was in Free, he had a little more rasp to his voice. He was a little more grit to it, and um, I think it's the Free album called Highway. Am I wrong? Or just the first album called Free. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
yeah. It's Free is the one with it's the one with the girl jumping over the solar system kind of a deal. Yeah, turns night to day. Yeah, it's just called Free. That one would be one of them. Um, um, I really love. I'm maybe because I'm talking to you, but I'm thinking about it right now. Is the Hannah Lux live at the Marquee album? I just love.
Oh man, that's a great album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that thing just gets me going. You know what I mean? It just I
Yeah,
put that in the car
absolutely.
and start dancing. I just love that whole album, the vibe. I love Andy McCoy. He's a great guitar
Yeah.
player. I love that whole band. I think that whole band was. I mean, everybody in LA. We were talking about that. See, that's the thing. And back in those days, we all thought we were really cool. We thought we were badass looking and all that. And then all of a sudden, they came up and showed up, and we went, "Fuck," you know. It's like And there's no way we'll ever be that cool. I mean,
No,
where are you gonna find a singer that's as cool as Mike
that's
Monroe,
right.
and
Yeah, no,
then he
absolutely.
can play sax too, harmonica and all that shit, and he's like Mick Jagger, but so beautiful. What the fuck? It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
There's
right. I mean, he had like this larger than life atmosphere to him.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think he still does. I mean, I follow him on Instagram. And he's like still like doing spread eagles here
yeah.
on
No,
stage. Yeah,
yeah, and that's what you got to do. You got to stay in shape and all that, and be take care of yourself so you can be the best you can be. He never robs an
yeah.
audience. And there's too many people robbing audiences now. I think there's too many bands from our era. I'm talking about my era back then
Hmm.
that still don't do it. They're just kind of like phoning it in. In other words, right? They're playing in
Yeah,
these and that's one thing like I was just saying before. I was lucky that I didn't get really lumped into that, and I had to do that for the rest of my life. I can do other things. Where some of these guys are just tied to that band name, and or that band. So that's all they can do, and it's hard. But yeah, so I just look at it as a blessing that I only scratch my way to the middle, as they say. Instead, you know, that way I can actually play other styles of music and keep playing and do what I do. Yeah. And with my third album, God, what am I gonna think about? My third favorite album. Hmm. God, there's so many to choose. I
yeah,
really loved. I would probably have to take me some. One of my favorite bands is Thin Lizzy. So I just love Thin
all
Lizzy.
right.
Yeah. So the Thin Lizzy, probably the Jailbreak album. Just if I had to, could only pick one, because that's the
It's a
one
classic. Yeah,
yeah, that's the one I got when I was a kid. So yeah, probably that one.
and they had a big influence on the strip bands, I would say as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But I always loved him, Phil. Phil Lynott when he would sing, it just seemed like he was just talking to you, like he was telling you a story. Like he was just talking to you at a bar. You know,
Yeah,
it was really interesting to me the way he did that. To me, and it was very personal and just rocked so hard. And he was so fucking cool. He's just so cool. It was ridiculously cool. The whole band was cool.
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
All right. Cool, man. So it's. I think we're running out of time, but it's been great talking with you. I mean, it's been really interesting as well. It's hearing all these stories.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I wanted to talk about the book thing, but I want to wait a little bit just because it's something. Maybe we can talk again when it comes out. How's that? Maybe we can.
Absolutely. I mean, you're a friend of the show, so you can always come back. You're always welcome.
Thank you so much. It's great talking to you, man. I really appreciate it so much.
It's been great talking with you as well, and I hope to have you back soon.
Okay. All right, Santi. You take care, man. Thank you, sir.
You too. Take care, man.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Alright, folks, sadly that's all the time we have for today, but what an episode, right? Don't forget to hit the follow button on Spotify and share it with your friends. You can also follow us on Instagram at hollywood.dreams.podcast. And rock on!